Today's video will explain how to use a Sentinel-controlled loop. Hello, I'm James Helfrich. There are four types of loops. There is a counter control loop, an event control loop, a collection control loop, and the fourth loop is called a Sentinel control loop. This video will explain what a Sentinel control loop is and how to implement one. A Sentinel control loop is a type of loop where code is repeated until a gatekeeper called a Sentinel indicates the loop is finished. Now, the gatekeeper, the sentinel, is always a Boolean value. True typically means continue the loop, and false means exit the loop. So for an example, I have a flowchart here representing a loop. Now, the first step of a sentinel control loop pattern is to initialize the sentinel variable. In this case, my sentinel variable is a Boolean called done, and done is initially set to false. The second step is the loop control, and this is usually a while loop. And we're going to check to see if done is true. If done is true, then we exit. Otherwise, we continue. And the final is the body of the loop. And this is where I set the sentinel variable. Now, usually we have more than one condition. That's kind of the big part of the sentinel control loop design pattern, is that if we try to put all the conditions controlling the loop into the while loop becomes very complex. Instead, we're going to separate that condition up into a collection of if statements in the body of the loop. And each one of these will set done equals true if it's time to exit the loop. So let's take a look at the three parts of this loop in turn. The first is the initialization part. The initialization part is no more than taking our sentinel variable, done in this case, and setting it to false. Notice our sentinel is always a Boolean. The second part is the control statement. Usually it's while not done, or in this case, do while not done, but it's almost always a while loop. And the while loop just looks at the sentinel variable. That's all it does. And the final step is the loop body. And the loop body is the various conditions which set the sentinel variable. Now, notice that we sometimes can take all these conditions and cram them into a single, very complicated Boolean expression in the while loop. But other times we have to do computation between different conditions. In each one of these cases, however, the body of the if statement is always a simple done equals true. So let's take a look at an example here. The student will continue taking the class as long as his grade is less than or equal to D, and as long as he continues to cheat. This is a sentinel control loop because I have two conditions. First, the grade, and second, whether the student cheated. So I'm going to prompt for the grade and prompt if they cheated here. Now, I got to initialize my sentinel, and so I'm going to say past equals false. So by default, we've set false, and we're going to continue going as long as past is false. Next, we have our loop control, and this is, once again, we're going to check the sentinel. So do while not past. And then finally, I have the body of the loop. What are the two conditions where the sentinel can change? The first, if grade is greater than or equal to 70, then I passed. And the second, if I cheated, then past equals false. This is example 9.3 in the loops chapter of the software design textbook.